Okay, so understanding is not an obligation. And that's the emphasis of this episode. So we're going to start off by just talking about the exhaustion of explaining yourself and why having to justify the way that you feel and why you feel the way that you feel is a really specific type of emotional labor of explaining trauma. So every time you have to explain yourself, you're opening a window to your past. And for most of us that have been experiencing life in the last 15 years have went through a lot of trauma. So it brings us all to this thought and this kind of weight of why do I have to explain my trauma and hope it's justified enough for people who want to understand me. And so when this is the emphasis of the episode, as much as it is helpful to have people understand us and to have people to move through life with, it's so important that we are able to take self-responsibility and know that it's okay to be misunderstood and know that our boundaries are what's going to protect us from being hurt, from not being misunderstood, and how shifting the pain of being not understood by using positive alertness. So, we're going to start off and we're going to address who is responsible for healing because no one else can do healing for you. You are responsible for healing. The answer is I should be, and no one else should have to help me move through my healing. Support is so very helpful, and sometimes it feels like it's necessary, but it's not required for growth. And understanding is not owed to people. It's a good feeling, but it's not owed to you, and it's not an obligation for you to become a better person. Healing is a very personal and inner work. It's something that only you can fully understand. And so when you are able to understand that support and understanding are not required and that healing is personal, it helps remove expectations of other people allow which stops us from getting consumed in what we hope of them and being let down by them. It removes entitlement, feeling entitled to the perspective that we have on people, and it stops resentment. So it stops us from disliking or hating the people that we're going to in these moments for support and understanding. Understanding that support is helpful but not required, understanding is helpful but not owed, and healing is very personal work, removes expectation, entitlement, and resentment, which are all three of the baselines of the issues of a lot of people, of a lot of social interactions that we deal with now. A lot of people have an expectation of how you're supposed to respond, or they feel entitled to a response out of you. And if they don't get what they want, then they will resent you and they will make you feel any kind of way for that. Now, this doesn't say that you explaining yourself doesn't matter. Explanation still matters. If you don't explain yourself, if you block your voice from speaking when it feels as though it needs to be heard, you're holding yourself back. And so you don't have to explain your trauma and think that you're begging for help. You're explaining your trauma for context. And if you're comfortable doing that and it comes out naturally, then let it be. And whatever feelings other people get based off of what you've been through is not your problem. Being aware helps people understand why you behave the way that you do and helps further the reason behind your actions. And so when people are fully able to understand the who, what, when, where, why of how you are, and it's something that they want to understand, it starts to create a connection and it will give room for empathy and safety with yourself and for others to be around you. awareness is not an obligation. Everyone's obviously not going to be aware of you and what you've been through, but it's clarity. And so if you can provide yourself that clarity, then when people are ready for that clarity on your level, they will know and they will understand. And that'll be something that's reciprocated on both ends. It won't be something that you think isn't there. And now there is a limit of empathy in others. So not everyone has lived through your experiences, as we know. You and little Sally Sue and Jimbo Bob are never going to live like the same, have never lived the same life. So you'll never have the same experience. And therefore, not everyone's going to be able to understand why you react the way that you react. There will be people in your life that will never be able to fully understand you and the reason behind your actions because they never needed to be on your level of understanding. And this is where the emotional maturity differences and life experiences differentiate, and trauma informed versus non-trauma informed minds come in. And this creates the painful experience of being misunderstood and feeling dismissed and being minimized by situations because of your expectations and your own experiences and your own entitlement and your own resentment that you've built because of what you've been through, and now no one understands you. So now you are blocking yourself from connection, empathy, and safety because you're scared of the limit of empathy that others have, instead of understanding that others' empathy is limited to their own experiences. And the sting of being misunderstood, as much as it stings to being misunderstood, the sting of being misunderstood literally feels like a knife in the chest. I don't know what it is about humans, and I know I'm not the only one who feels this way, and I know you aren't the only one who feels this way, so we both have to know that we aren't the only ones who feel this way. But as much as it stings to have an unresolved feeling of being misunderstood, the emotional response to that is far greater. So that sting isn't just your trauma response reactions without a conscious thought before. It's irrational shame, anger, confusion, and abandonment all wrapped up in one little knife stabbing you in the back. And that's what it feels like. And so what I'm trying to say here is that it's normal to feel this way. It's normal to feel shame and anger and be confused and feel abandoned when you feel misunderstood because you feel as though there is no support system. This is where I personally would like to emphasize the fact that when I talk about positive alertness and I talk about the higher source, know that I am addressing God. I am saying that if you are able to understand that it's not just you, it's you and God. It's always going to be you and God, you and being. It will always be you and God or you and being. You'll be able to start shifting. And you'll be able to step back and understand why and where this shame, anger, and confusion and feeling abandoned comes from. But until you're able to understand that God and being do understand what you've been through and that they do have your back, you're never going to be able to push through the misunderstandings because of how hard misunderstanding cuts. Being misunderstood is a very, very deep cut. Humans are wired for relational safety, and understanding is a safety signal. And so when we feel misunderstood and we feel as though like no one gets us and we're confused and we just feel shame and we are consumed in all these negative emotions, we have to be able to understand that yes, I feel misunderstood by everything else around me, but I know. So if I know, being knows and God knows. Being or God whatever, however you choose to phrase it, whatever that source is, they also know. They know what you've been through. They do understand. And though they physically are not there with you, know that that energy is still there. You can feel it. It's not like you can't feel it. If you weren't able to feel it, then you wouldn't know it. Like, you genuinely wouldn't know it's there, but you know it's there. And so once you're kind of able to understand that you are misunderstood by everybody else except for yourself and being and or God, you have to give grace to those who don't understand. And this is kind of the hard part. And this is the part that I struggle with mainly. And I know that most people, especially you and me, we struggle with a lot. Giving grace to those who can't understand. You have to be able to give grace to people who do not have the same perspective as you when it comes to shifting and when it comes to understanding that you are not alone because you are with God and you are being, because it's not their responsibility yet. So I have to give you grace because it's not your responsibility yet to care. At some point in your life, you will reach a level of growth where you are able to care. But I will give you grace until you're there, because if I don't give you this grace, then how will you reach this point? And so in this very specific situation, grace means accepting different perspectives and not pushing and not punishing ignorance and not requiring others to perform emotional labor. Grace does not mean tolerance, it does not mean self-abandonment, and it does not mean no boundaries. It means holding yourself with the same level of grace that you would give everybody else. So if you give yourself the space and room to grow and understand and to feel, then you have to give that to somebody else, because they also deserve that, despite how you may feel towards them. But you now have the responsibility to take care of yourself in this situation. And so in situations like this, self-responsibility looks a lot like knowing your needs and leaving unsafe interactions and communicating limits to other people. And so this is where a concept that I've talked about in the past comes in, where you use positive alertness. Using awareness to redirect your energy and responding instead of reacting. So positive alertness is a lot about reframing the situations that you're in into a light that makes it a lot easier to understand. You use positive alertness strategies and shift that negative situation into a beautiful moment for growth. And no one else has to know that you're doing any of this. That's the most beautiful part, is no one has to know that you're doing any of this at all. And so to break this down in like a more, I guess, scientific form, notice what makes you overstimulated. Notice the stimulus. Notice where these negative emotions and where this negativity is rooting. Notice your reaction to that situation. If it's out of proportion, if it's under proportion, notice how you are reacting. Not how people are perceiving your reaction, but how you are actually reacting in this very moment. And choose a different meaning. So I have the most perfect example for this, because someone actually really pissed me off earlier today. So earlier today, I posted on my story. So I cut my hair really short. I really, really, really like having short hair. I love having short hair. It's easy to take care of. I'm a server. I don't know, something about short hair for me. Like I will always have a soft spot for short hair. I will never not want short hair. And so my hair is always short. And sometimes I like the idea of having long hair. And I think, how cute would I be if I had long hair in this moment? And so I got extensions for my hair. Now, I posted on my story that because I didn't put my extensions in right, and I was like, man, it's too short. Like, it's just too short. It's not blending right in this area. This area looks too short to be like part of whatever. And I posted a video and like just mindlessly. And someone swipes up and they go, why did you cut all your hair off if you were just going to buy a wig? And I was like, well, why do you care? Because I was honestly like, I was just kind of curious and like, why do you care? And he was like, it's not my head. I don't care. And I was like, oh, well, then why'd you ask? You know? Which this just led to this person going, oh, I'm just trying to rage bait you. I'm just trying to rage bait you. And I was really confused because I got confused after he didn't actually have a reason why he was asking. I was like, oh, and now you're typing paragraphs. Okay, awesome. This is just overstimulating. I'm not raged. I'm just overstimulated. I'm you're stressing me out. I might cry. Like, whoa. And so for me in this situation, this guy literally going out of his way to try to rage bait me was my stimulus. My reaction was being confused and not understanding and kind of just thinking he was stupid for trying to rage bait me. Now, my choosing a different meaning is going to be me choosing that this was just a miscommunication and he just didn't understand that I liked having long and short hair. Why it blew out of proportion and came into like a whole back and forth situation, I have no idea. But once it got to the point where I was like confused and just stressed out and overstimulated, I just decided, I don't understand you. You don't understand women. Let's call it a day. And I'll be honest, I'm still going back and forth with this man because then he said he was a functional member of society, which I have other sources saying that he's not. So then that became a whole different thing. But like another example would be feeling misunderstood. If you feel misunderstood, that would be your stimulus. Notice your reaction, whatever that may be. Insert reaction here. The choosing a different meaning would be practicing a boundary. If you feel dismissed, insert reaction, practice self-validation. That's your different meaning. If you are feeling judged, that's your stimulus. Insert reaction here. Your different meaning is practicing non-comparison. Don't let societal views take away from the beauty in these situations. There's so much growth that comes from being misunderstood. There's so much beautiful growth that comes from being misunderstood. So don't let society think that you shouldn't be in a position of growth. If anything, you should always be in a position of growth. You should never not be in a position of growth. If you aren't in a position of growth, why are you not growing right now? You're telling me that you would rather sit here and stay still and not become better. Okay, cool. Understood. Not going to follow the same path. When I talk about beauty, I talk about growth, clarity, and maturity. So, why are we not embracing the beautiful in all of these situations? You deserve to feel understood and heard and seen by all the people that you choose to have in your life. Your circle creates what you put out there. If you don't hold people around you at your level, then you're not going to, let's say that you keep everybody around you one level under you all the time. You're still going to be one step behind because you're never gaining anything from anybody around you. Not saying that these have to be transactional relationships, but if there is nothing inspiring and you're only just trying to be the one inspiring people and you're never getting inspired, you're not giving much room for your own personal growth, just theirs, which will then lead to entitlement and resentment and I'm forgetting the word. And expectations that are not met. You have to understand that you do choose who gets access to the best parts of you. You choose who gets grace from you. These are choices that you get to make, and no one else gets to help you decide them. So, however you want your life to turn out, and however you want it to look, and however you see your most authentic self, if you're moving towards that, trust me, it only gets clearer and it only becomes more beautiful from there. Reframe your relationships as environments. Some will allow growth, and some will stunt it, and some will harm it. And so, if your relationships are your environments, and you have environments for growth, and you have environments that stunt your growth, and you have environments that harm your growth, where would you rather be? Where you're getting harmed, where you're being stopped, or where you're actually able to move? And now let's say you have people in your circle and you're really close with them, and you realize that we actually don't align anymore. What is one supposed to do when you realize that you'll never be understood by someone that was close to them? What are you supposed to do? Because now you have already created this connection, this bond, this almost like what feels like a reliance on this person. And you, if you want to grow, you now have to let them go. Well, how am I supposed to let them go? Or let whatever I need to let go for me to be able to grow in this situation. And so this is where I personally suggest a positive alertness shift. You use positive alertness to shift and set boundaries and seek security, and make a time to set boundaries and put yourself in a situation where you feel secure. So you don't have to cut this person out, but you need to put yourself in a relationship with this person where you still feel secure with them in your life. And so if that means giving them limited access, then that means giving them limited access. No, well, cry about it later, you know? Like, what else are you supposed to do? Hold yourself back? You can do that, but at one point that's not going to cut it anymore and you will go crazy. Your boundaries are your clarity and your protection. Your security is your emotional safety. If understanding isn't possible, then safety still has to be an option. If you don't want to get rid of people out of your life, then you need to make sure that you are in a position where you feel safe enough with yourself to have them in your life still without them dimming your authentic self. And so I'm going to restate all of our most important things that you need to stay locked in on from this episode. You do not need to be understood to heal. Explaining yourself gives context, but it is not an obligation. Being misunderstood hurts, but it does not define you. Positive alertness turns pain into growth. You deserve to be understood. So understand yourself. You deserve to feel safe. So put yourself in the position to be emotionally safe. You deserve connection. So give yourself the connections that you feel you deserve now. You decide who gets access to you. So make sure that you have full access first. You are not responsible for being understood by everybody. You are responsible for being understood by yourself and choosing environments where you don't have to beg for clarity. And with that, we end this episode, guys. Like I've said, if this episode resonated with you in any way, shape, or form, share it, post it, send it to somebody that you love, send it to somebody that you might think needs to hear it. Do whatever the heck you need to do with it. Just make sure you're giving yourself the space for your most authentic self while you do it, okay? I love you all so very, 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 very much. And I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Later.